Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Everyday English Pod. We've got a really good one for you today. We're going to be talking about something that I think we can all relate to, and that's talking about your goals and your achievements.
Yeah, and that's something that comes up, whether you're in a job interview or maybe just chatting with some new people you've met.
Right.
And, you know, it's one thing to have those goals and those achievements, but it's another to be able to talk about them confidently and naturally in English.
Exactly.
So we're going to give you the tools and the phrases to really express yourself clearly and effectively.
All right, so let's dive right in. Let's start with talking about those big picture, long-term goals. Like, how do you describe those in a way that's going to really connect with people?
Well, I think the key here is to strike a balance between being specific and being adaptable.
Okay.
For example, instead of just saying, I want to be a manager, you could say something like, I'm aiming to become a manager in the next 5 years by focusing on improving my leadership skills. Yeah. So you're giving a time frame. You're mentioning specific actions.
So it sounds like you've really thought about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some phrases that we can use to talk about those long-term goals?
Well, a really powerful one is my ultimate goal is to.
Okay.
And then you can follow that up with something like, my ultimate goal is to start my own business that focuses on sustainable products.
Oh, I like that.
It shows you're driven, you've got a clear vision.
Yeah, it shows where your priorities are. What about, I hope to achieve?
Right, I hope to achieve. That one's a little bit less direct, but it still conveys that forward-thinking mindset.
Right.
So you might say something like, I hope to achieve fluency in Spanish within the next 2 years so I can travel through South America with ease.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, and another one we've got here is I'm working towards.
Right. I'm working towards. That one's great because it shows you're actively engaged in the process.
Right.
It's not just a dream. It's something you're actually putting effort into.
Right.
So you could say, I'm working towards mastering a new programming language like Python so I can land a job in software development.
That's great. Yeah. So it's not just about listing off these goals. It's also about adding that personal touch and explaining why they matter to you.
Right.
Right.
You've got to connect with people on an emotional level.
Right.
So, for example, you could say, I'm really passionate about education. So my goal is to volunteer as a tutor to help kids in underserved communities.
I like that. It feels genuine.
Exactly. It's not just ambition. It's about a deeper purpose.
Okay, so let's talk about challenges. What if there are some obstacles that might get in the way of achieving those goals? Should we mention those or should we just kind of keep it positive?
Oh, I think acknowledging the challenges makes you sound more realistic and more prepared.
Yeah, I agree.
For example, you could say, I know balancing work and family can be tough, but I'm committed to dedicating an hour each evening to working on my side business.
I think that shows you're serious about it.
Right. Shows you've thought it through.
You're not afraid of the hard work. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
And what about laying out those specific steps that you're taking?
Oh, yeah, that's super important. That adds a lot of credibility to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you could say something like, I'm currently taking online courses and networking with people in my field to gain experience and knowledge.
Right.
So you're showing that you have a plan and you're taking action.
Okay, so how do we express ambition without sounding like, overconfident or arrogant?
That's a good question. I think the phrase I aspire to is a good one.
Yeah.
But again, it's about backing it up with concrete actions.
Okay.
So you could say something like, I aspire to lead a team of designers, and I'm currently building my portfolio and taking leadership workshops to prepare for that role.
So you're showing that you're willing to put in the work to get there.
Right.
Okay. And finally, what about ending on that positive note? Showing that you believe in yourself and you believe in your ability to reach those goals.
Oh, definitely. A statement like, I'm confident that with hard work and perseverance, I'll be able to achieve my goals.
Yeah.
That shows that positive attitude and it leaves a good lasting impression.
Okay, so we've covered those long-term goals. Let's move on to talking about our achievements. How do we share those in a way that's impactful, without sounding like we're bragging?
Yeah, that's tricky.
Right.
I think being specific and focusing on the results is key.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, I improved sales, you could say, I led a sales team of 5, and we exceeded our targets by 15%.
Ooh, I like that. It's specific.
Right. It's more convincing when you use those numbers and those concrete details.
Yeah, and it's not just about those numbers either.
Yeah.
It's about those skills that you use to get those results right.
Absolutely.
Right.
You want to highlight your strengths.
Right.
So you could say something like, by improving communication within my team, We were able to streamline our workflow and complete the project ahead of schedule.
So you're showing that you have those skills and you know how to apply them. Right.
Okay. And sometimes, we want to add that personal touch
Oh, for sure.
to our achievements. What are some phrases that we can use for that?
Well, something like, I'm particularly proud of, always works well.
Okay.
So, for example, I'm particularly proud of mentoring a junior colleague who has now been promoted to a leadership position.
Yeah, it shows that you care about helping others succeed.
Right. It's not just about your own accomplishments. It's about your impact on others.
Okay. And another good phrase is, one of my key achievements is.
Yeah. One of my key achievements is, that's a great way to directly state a significant accomplishment.
Right.
So one of my key achievements is developing a new marketing strategy that led to a 20% increase in website traffic.
Okay, so just like with goals, we might encounter some challenges along the way.
Right.
So should we mention those challenges when we're talking about our achievements, or should we just focus on the positive outcome?
Oh, I think mentioning the challenges shows that you're resilient.
Yeah, I agree.
And that you can overcome obstacles. It makes it more believable.
Right. So you might say, I faced a lot of pushback when I proposed this new idea, but I persisted. And eventually I was able to convince the team of its value.
I think that shows that you have a lot of determination.
Exactly.
And in a lot of cases, our achievements are actually team efforts, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're working with others to achieve something.
Right.
And so when you're talking about teamwork, it's important to use we language,
Okay.
to emphasize that collaborative spirit.
Right.
So you could say, by working closely with the marketing team, we're able to launch a successful new product.
So you're giving credit where credit is due.
Right.
And it shows that you can work effectively as part of a team.
Exactly.
Okay, so when we're wrapping up talking about our achievements, how do we end on a strong note?
I think it's good to end with a statement that emphasizes learning and growth.
Yeah.
For example, you could say, this experience taught me valuable lessons about leadership and project management, and I'm excited to apply those skills to future challenges.
It shows that you're continuously learning and developing.
Exactly.
Okay, and one last tip for sharing your achievements. What kind of tone should we aim for?
I think it's all about finding that balance between confidence and humility.
Right.
You want to showcase your skills and your accomplishments, but you don't want to sound arrogant.
Yeah, we don't want to sound like we're bragging. Okay.
So maybe end with something like, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have contributed to this project, and I learned a lot from the experience.
It shows that you appreciate the chance to have grown and developed.
Right. It shows that you're always striving to improve.
Okay, so we've talked about our long-term goals and our professional achievements. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about personal goals. How do you talk about those in a way that's engaging and interesting?
Well, I think it's important to connect your personal goals to your values. So, for example, instead of just saying, I want to learn to cook, you could say, I really value spending time with my family and sharing meals together. So my goal is to learn to cook more dishes from scratch.
Yeah, that gives it more meaning.
Exactly. It shows what's important to you.
Yeah.
And what about those goals that are focused on personal growth and development?
Yeah.
Like, learning a new skill or improving yourself in some way.
Highlighting those self-improvement goals shows that you're committed to lifelong learning.
Yeah.
So you could say, I'm always looking for ways to expand my knowledge, so I've set a goal to read a new book every month.
Right.
And that shows that you're curious and that you're constantly seeking new information.
And it can be anything.
It can be.
Like learning to play an instrument.
Yeah.
Taking up a new hobby.
Exactly.
Right.
Mentioning those hobbies is a great way to, make yourself more relatable.
Yeah.
And to show your personality.
Yeah. And it can make conversations more interesting.
Oh, for sure.
So you might say, I've always wanted to learn to play the piano, so I'm finally taking lessons.
So you're pursuing something that brings you joy. Okay, what about those goals that are about challenging yourself, pushing your limits?
I think those are great.
Yeah.
Because they show that you're not afraid to step outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
So you could say something like, I'm training for a marathon because I want to see what I'm capable of.
That's awesome. I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're sharing those personal aspirations, should we connect them to our broader life plans?
I think it's helpful to give some context.
Okay.
So you could say, I'm learning Spanish because I dream of traveling to Latin America and experiencing the culture firsthand.
Yeah, it shows that you're thinking ahead.
It does.
Okay. And just like with professional goals, adaptability seems to be important for personal goals as well.
Absolutely. Life is full of surprises, and you have to be able to adjust. So you might say something like, while my main focus right now is on my career, I'm also open to exploring other opportunities that come my way.
It shows that you're open-minded and flexible.
Exactly.
Okay, so even those big personal goals, they often start with small steps, right?
Of course.
So how do we talk about those small steps that we're taking?
Well, you could say something like, I'm trying to be more mindful of my daily life, so I've started meditating for 10 minutes each morning.
Right.
It shows that you're making those small changes that can lead to bigger results.
Yeah, I think consistency is key.
It is.
And finally, how do we end on a positive note when we're talking about our personal goals?
Expressing gratitude is always a good way to wrap things up.
Okay.
So you could say, I'm grateful for the progress I've made so far, and I'm excited to see what the future holds.
So it shows that you're appreciative of the journey.
And that you're optimistic about what's to come.
Okay, we've talked about how to set goals, how to share our achievements, but staying motivated can be tough.
It can be.
What are some ways to talk about how you stay motivated to pursue those goals?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to remind yourself why you started in the first place.
Right.
Connect with that deeper purpose.
Yeah.
So you could say, what keeps me motivated is knowing that I'm working towards something that's really important to me.
It's about having that clear vision of what you're working towards.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about using visualization?
Visualizing yourself achieving your goals is a powerful technique.
It is.
So you might say, I often imagine myself giving a successful presentation to help me stay focused and motivated while I'm preparing.
It's like a mental rehearsal, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And how about celebrating those small wins along the way?
Oh, celebrating those small victories is so important.
Right.
It helps you stay positive, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment.
It keeps you going.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could say, whenever I reach a milestone, I reward myself with something small, whether it's taking a break or buying myself a treat.
I think that's a great way to stay motivated. Okay. And how do we break down those big goals into smaller, more manageable steps?
Well, you could say something like, I break down my long-term goals into smaller weekly or monthly goals so I don't feel overwhelmed.
So it feels more attainable.
Right.
Okay. And who we surround ourselves with can also make a big difference in our motivation levels, right?
Definitely. Having a supportive network of people is crucial.
Yeah.
So you could say, I share my goals with my friends and family, and they encourage me to stay on track.
I love that. Accountability partners.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about seeking inspiration from others?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Reading books or listening to podcasts about successful people in your field can be really inspiring.
Right.
And it can remind you that anything is possible.
I think that's a great way to stay motivated. Okay, how often should we revisit our goals, to make sure we're still on track and we're still feeling motivated?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's important to review your goals regularly, maybe every few months.
Okay.
And you could say something like, I make it a habit to check in with myself and assess my progress and make any necessary adjustments to my plan.
Yeah, it's about staying flexible.
Exactly.
And making sure your goals still align with your values.
Right.
Okay, and finally, it's important to find some enjoyment in the process, right?
Yes.
We don't want to burn ourselves out.
Yeah. So you could say, I try to remind myself to enjoy the journey and celebrate my accomplishments along the way.
It's about finding those little moments of joy and satisfaction in the process.
Exactly.
Okay, let's be real for a second. We all face challenges on the road to achieving our goals.
Right.
How do we talk about those challenges in a way that's both honest and constructive?
Well, I think it's important to be open about the difficulties you faced
Okay.
and to focus on the lessons you've learned.
Okay.
So you could say, I've had my share of setbacks, but each one has taught me something valuable and helped me to grow.
It shows that you're resilient and you can learn from your mistakes.
What about those times when you feel self-doubt creeping in?
Oh, we all experience self-doubt at some point.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to talk about how you cope with those feelings.
Right.
You could say, when I start to doubt myself, I remind myself of my past successes and the reasons why I'm pursuing this goal in the first place.
I think it's about having that positive self-talk,
It is.
and reminding yourself of your strengths.
Okay.
And we all know that setbacks are inevitable, right?
Oh, yeah. They're part of the process.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about setbacks, it's important to frame them as learning opportunities.
Right.
So you could say something like, when I didn't get the promotion I was hoping for, I took some time to reflect on my performance and identify areas where I could improve.
Yeah, it's about turning those setbacks into stepping stones for growth. And sometimes, things don't go according to plan and we have to make adjustments along the way.
Right, life is unpredictable.
And it's important to show that you can adapt to those changes.
Okay.
So you can say, when the project I was working on got canceled, I used that opportunity to develop new skills that would be helpful for future projects.
It shows that you're resourceful.
Exactly.
And you can make the best of any situation. Now, what if you're feeling overwhelmed by a particular goal? How do you talk about breaking it down into smaller parts?
I think it's helpful to explain how you prioritize your tasks and set realistic timelines.
Okay.
So you could say something like, I create a to-do list each day and focus on the most important tasks first.
I think that's a great way to stay organized and to avoid feeling overwhelmed. And it's okay to ask for help when you need it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no shame in seeking guidance from others.
Right.
So you could say, when I was struggling with a particular aspect of my work, I reached out to a colleague for advice.
It shows that you're proactive and you're willing to learn from others. And finally, how do we talk about the importance of persistence?
I think you can say something like, I believe that with hard work and dedication, anything is possible.
I love that. It's about not giving up even when things get tough.
Right.
Okay. And even when you're facing challenges, it's important to acknowledge any progress you're making, no matter how small.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Every step forward is a victory.
Yeah.
And you can say something like, even though I haven't reached my ultimate goal yet, I'm proud of the progress I've made so far.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to stay positive and motivated. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Any final thoughts or tips for our listeners on how to confidently talk about their goals and achievements?
Yeah, I think the key takeaway is to be authentic, be specific, and to focus on your strength and your values.
Yeah, I agree.
And remember, everyone's journey is different.
It is.
So don't compare yourself to others and just focus on making progress towards your own goals.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, we hope these tips have been helpful, and we wish you all the best in achieving your goals. Thanks for listening to Everyday English Pod, and we'll catch you in the next episode.